Without the foresight of the early filmmakers, so much of what happened 70, 80, 100 years ago could so easily be forgotten. To see these old films again is like setting a spark to our memories, not just the high days and the holidays, but the ordinary days as well. In this film, we bring together both archive footage and living memory to create a special record of how life was lived in and around Salisbury and South Wiltshire from the 1920s to the 1970s. From witnessing the end of centuries-old farming practices to celebrating the start of the new Elizabethan age, the film examines the district as the filmmakers saw it, and how those who still live here today remember it. And as well as reminding us of how we used to live, the films also reconnect us to our forebears, the people who ploughed our fields, fought our battles, built our cities, and pioneered our technology. People such as Leslie Sample, whose grandson Paul Sample was reminded of his grandfather's aviation interest after seeing a 16mm film recording the activities of the Wiltshire Flying Club at High Post in the 1930s. As former leader of Salisbury District Council, Paul recognised the value of sharing these archive films with a wider audience and was eager to support the development of the project.
Salisbury District Council was abolished on the 31st of March 2009. We decided as our legacy for the future that we should support a project which would bring together some of the wonderful archive footage from not just Salisbury but the whole of the district together in a DVD, something that could be recorded and enjoyed by future generations. Well, I was delighted to see High Post. It was quite clearly and unmistakably the place where I know from my grandfather's logbook that he learned to fly. And he flew here in the 1930s, a Robinson Red Wing, with his instructor, Mr. Horden. I've got my grandfather's international flying licence, which was issued in June 1936. And I've also got his logbook, which all pilots are required to keep. It's got the date of his first flight here at High Post in 1931. The buildings behind me are some of the original hangars which were owned by Wiltshire Flying Club in the 1930s, which housed the aircraft. And then when Wiltshire Flying Club closed down, they were used to house some of the Spitfires, which were flown for the first time, having been built down in Salisbury, in Castle Street and at Hudson's Field. They were then brought up here for their first flight.
The film shot at High Post was made by the late Claude Wilcox, once a well-known stills photographer in Warminster. He first used moving film in the years prior to World War I, and later took up a cine camera again in the 1930s when the Flying Club film was made. His films were eventually donated to Warminster Museum, and this one in particular shows in some detail several of the aircraft that flew from High Post.
Well, this is a de Havilland 60 Gypsy Moth, very popular two-seater aircraft, and it was owned by Wiltshire School of Flying at High Post from September 1934 until May 1939. This is Golf Alpha Echo Delta X-ray. It's a BA Swallow, which was owned and operated here between November 1937 and July 1941. And this little red aircraft is a Piper J4A Cub, a very popular aircraft, and there are still some of these about today. It was owned by Wiltshire School of Flying and operated between April and May 1939. For all of us who live in South Wiltshire, there's lots of archive film about our villages, our streets, our communities, and it's something which should be shared. And as my experience has shown, it's something that's relevant to me as a Wiltshireman and as someone whose family have lived here, you know, from the beginning of the last century. I think it's something that's hugely important we should conserve and enable all of our community to discover for themselves.